Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in today to the Zenwara channel and listening to this video. So this video today is actually a video on a subject that I've touched upon, which is the subject of the Sarmanjul. Okay, so the Sarmanjul, those are the stones of creation. Okay, they were stones that were existent when this creation was created. Okay, so this creation was created in a way, and there are multiple levels of creation, but one way of seeing it, okay, is that basically God stood on the foundation stone, okay, surrounded in space, if you will, okay, by the stones of creation, the Sarmanjul, okay. So you have different stones, for example, ones that I've followed the story of so far very closely is the blue stone, the orange stone, and the black stone, which was the white stone. And then what happens is the white stone became black when it absorbed its first soul. Okay. So, and why did it absorb its first soul? Because it wanted to help and justify to itself in a sense that it wanted to help that soul, if you will. Anyways, so there was a story behind that as well. Okay. So what do we have now? Okay, so we have the blue stone, which was worshipped at the Ellora caves. Okay, at the when the first stories were created, if you will. Okay, so the blue stone, basically, as different versions of creation were created. Okay, the stones were used basically as the remnants of what had come from previous creations. So the found the Samanjun, the stones of creation, were actually brought from previous creation. Okay, previous versions, if you will, of creation. So, so for example, the orange stone was worshipped by a certain people who lived, and I won't go too much into the depth of this, but the orange stone basically worshipped by a Nabatean type culture. And then basically the blue stone worshipped at the Ellora caves near Rungabad, okay, and the black stone, which we now know, all of us, as the stone that is now at Mecca, right, okay, which is a very famous stone. Okay, so a little bit more about these stones. Okay, these stones are conscious stones. Okay, so the stones are aware stones. Okay, and they have knowledge. These stones of the truth of creation. Okay, to a certain degree, not knowledge like God has knowledge, but they have knowledge of God. Okay, and of the truth of God. Okay, these stones are also they have a tendency to create bubbles around themselves, okay, as they can sometimes not necessarily get along one with the other all the time, okay? So the same thing for the foundation stone, which is also aware. Okay, the foundation stone, okay, also a stone that's aware, okay, in a different type than the black stone, for example, but aware in the same sense. Okay, so these stones can communicate with each other, and how do they do this? For example, they do this through their followers, if you will. Okay, basically, what these stones do is they create bubbles around themselves to protect themselves. So imagine circles that are hard to get to. For example, the black stone you can only get to if you are, for example, a member of a certain faith, which prays in the direction of that stone, incorporates that stone into their story, all right, and all this. All right, we've talked about stories before. So everything's a story for everyone, okay? And with the stories of our lives, basically, okay? Now the foundation stone, the same thing. You can only see the foundation stone, for example, in certain circumstances, okay? So they have a barrier around themselves, okay? However, they're central to the worship of basically everything that turns around them, right? As people turn towards them to pray, for example, okay, the worship turns around them. People move and then it comes back to them. They create their bubble around themselves. Okay, so that's how they operate, that's how they do their thing. So, very important stones, okay? The stones themselves, okay, are conscious, and basically they are a central part of communicating the truth of God through history, throughout the story to everybody. Okay, because they have knowledge. They were there at the moment of creation. Okay, so basically, as such, they're worshipped as objects that were there at the moment of creation. Okay, but and that are aware, right? So very powerful beings in their sense. Okay, so that's a little bit more about the Sahmanjul, the stones of creation. Okay, one of the orange stone was in a temple. The temple was attacked, and it was hidden basically in a secret chamber within that temple, right? And then the blue stone, there was also problems with the blue stone. There often is with conflict, right? And things taking place. And I don't think the orange stone has moved from that chamber, and the blue stone, I'm not quite sure where the blue stone is at that point. So, but the black stone, we know where it is, right? So, it's a very very holy in a sense stone in that sense, right? Um, you know. Now a little bit more about the story of and this is of the stone, okay, and how that stone falls into the life of the Prophet Muhammad. Okay, so one of the experiences I had after enlightenment, as I had experiences when, for example, it's time for me to talk about something, and I have my story as well, right? And I follow my storyline as well. So when it's time for me to talk about a subject, right? Sometimes I'll get an understanding of that subject with an experience like enlightenment, where you actually see and experience the lifetime of someone, or it's more like I remember an experience or a lifetime as I experienced everything at the time of enlightenment, of full enlightenment. So one of these experiences that I lived was the experiences of life at the time of the Prophet Muhammad. So the life of the Prophet. So I actually experienced his life and the life of his contemporaries as well, right? And I basically saw how basically the Prophet Muhammad at one point got exiled, outside, away, and then came back to Mecca basically at one point, and then basically was, we would say, in charge of Mecca, okay? And he had the black stone. But what happens is, where was he was in communion with the black stone, right? Because he had touched the stone. And when you touch the stone, it has the ability to take a part of you and keep it within itself. Okay, the stone's not a bad stone. Okay, it's a holy stone. All the Sarman jewel are, okay, but they have abilities. Okay, and the black stone, the reason it changed color, it's because it took an approach where it knows better, almost, right? Or in the absence of God, I'll carry you, and then when God shows up, I'll have carried you within me, and you know will will ascend, to the higher heights. Okay, different perspective, different approach. Um, you know, but so what happened is, at that time, the time of the Prophet Muhammad, his contemporaries, okay, a specific group that actually attacked Mecca at one point. Okay, they attacked and they made it into the interior courtyard, if you will, where the black stone was. Right, they attacked. And at that point, what they wanted to do is they wanted to destroy the black stone, okay? Because they were scared that the black stone was having too much of an influence, okay, on the Prophet Muhammad. Okay, so that's what happened. And the Black Stone tried to defend itself, obviously, but the rebels got in. And one of them, the younger brother, picked up a hammer, and he basically took the stone, and in the courtyard, he shattered it with the hammer, right? He shattered the stone, right? So at that point, the stone became damaged, right? So that's the story of how that kind of happened at that time, and then at that point, those rebels were pushed back, and all these things, but the stone had been damaged at that time, and that's how the story of how the Black Stone, or what used to be the White Stone, got damaged during the attack on Mecca, where the Prophet Muhammad was actually present in the courtyard at the time when it happened with the rebels. Okay, so that's a little bit more information. And how do I know this? This is basically, as I said, an experience that I had, basically experiencing the lifetime of the Prophet Muhammad as I was the Prophet Muhammad in that experience. Okay, and that's consistent with the experiences since my enlightenment of different moments of our history and possibilities for our future. Okay, so thanks very much for listening. Okay, a little bit more information about the Black Stone. Okay, how it creates basically a circle around it. Okay, everything circles around it. Okay, and what is the purpose of these stones? The purpose of these stones is to keep the truth of God within creation. Okay, until such a time as God arrives, basically, right? And where the truth can be disseminated fully, even to a level that they were not aware of. So it's actually a truth that can be shared with them as well, right? But they were there at the moment of creation. But remember, we're talking about level moments of creation within the Kala Chakra, okay? As there are also moments of creation outside of the Kala Chakra above, okay? And everything that's created within the Kala Chakra. So, for example, we're within the Kala Chakra at this level, okay? So anything that we downward program and create at this point is still within the Kala Chakra, okay? So it's basically how it works at that level, okay? So you're looking at branches that just branches that come off from the tree, if you will. Okay, so thanks for listening. A little bit more information. If you do have any specific questions on the Sarman Jewel, basically on the foundation stone, basically, once again, the experience that I had, as I experienced creation at this level, is standing on the foundation stone and being surrounded by the Sarman Jewel, the stones of creation, okay, in darkness or in space around me, and creating this version basically with that the information from the previous version that is within the stones of creation. Okay, so thanks very much for listening. Once again, if you have any questions, please put them in the comments, and I'll respond to those as soon as I can. Thank you.